for a little rec league action. It is week 7 in the NFL, week 8 in college football, and we've got the R, the E, and the C here. Russ Landy, our man coming from overseas right now. More on that in just a little bit. He's with GM Junior Scouting. He is the man of all things in the talent evaluation department. And we've got Chris Martin, former NFL defensive back contract negotiator as well. He and I are in Chicago. Not that interesting, but I am here from Yahoo Shutdown Corner. We're going to talk a lot of NFL stuff. And the first sort of big story I think that's come up in the last day here, Geno Smith is apparently going to get the start this week. Ryan Fitzpatrick has struggled, had the great first game, great second game of the season, I should say, their only win. But it's really fallen off since then. The interceptions lead the league. There are 11 of them. So Todd Bowles is making a change. And Chris, I'll come to you first. It sounds like this might be it for Fitz. What did you think of Bowles making the switch to Geno? And does Geno have a chance to kind of revive his career a little bit here?
Well, first off, I think you're being kind if you say that he has struggled, because he has been god-awful. He really has been terrible. And, everyone focuses on the number of picks, which is rightfully so. You mentioned 11E. I focus more on where he throws the picks. He's throwing picks in the red zone, which take points off the board. It's a drive killer, and it really deflates your team. So my suspicion is that Mike McCagnon probably stepped in, their general manager here, and said, look, I understand maybe you want to kind of stem the tide with Fitzpatrick, but we need to go another direction here. We feel the bottom falling out of this thing. We got a stretch coming up that could be winnable, but we need to see what Geno has. So I think it's the right move. It's justified. It was very noble of Brandon Marshall trying to step on and step on the grenade for Fitzpatrick, saying it wasn't his fault. But look, he's forcing the ball in there. He's making some bad decisions right now. He looks clearly that he's rattled, so I think it's the right move.
Russ, a lot of angles to this. Obviously, entering this season, we looked at them keeping 4 quarterbacks on the roster and felt like, if you have 4, you don't have 1 almost, So what's the big picture here? Is Geno going to run away with this job, or are they sort of intent on getting a look at Bryce Petty, who just came back from his shoulder injury and has started to practice again? Or even possibly Christian Hackenberg, even though he looked so terrible in the preseason.
Well, firstly, I think it tells you that you have to give credit to the Jets management for not feeling the pressure and overpaying Fitz during the offseason. They went with a 1-year deal. He's bombed. He's done there. I think they're going to give Geno every chance to solidify himself. Last year in training camp, he had a great camp before that incident where his jaw got broken. A lot of people thought he had made strides then. I think they want to see what he can do. I'll bet you he gets at least 6 to 8 starts. I think they'd like him to claim that job. But they need to know going into this offseason if Geno's a part of their plans. If he isn't, they need to know they have Petty and Hackenberg and probably go get a veteran who can be sort of that mentor to both of those guys. But I think Geno's the guy to go to here. I think it also tells you they know this season is probably a goner at this point. So the best thing they can do is try to plan for the future, not try to juggle things around and try to get a few wins to get back in the picture, because this year isn't happening.
Yeah, it's so interesting, too, to hear Todd Bowles. He was asked on Tuesday about Geno Smith's comment about how he's antsy. He wants to get the job. And, Bowles kind of rolled his eyes and said, well, he's a bench player. He's a backup. And backups are supposed to be antsy. It was just such an interesting comment to make. The next day he names him starter. I kind of wonder how firm Bowles is on Geno, where this is more about Fitzpatrick being bad. Another quarterback switch as we shift on to another team here, the Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers. He suffers a meniscus injury on Sunday, a bad loss to the Miami Dolphins. Kind of a weird-looking play that he suffered it on, too. Didn't look like anything really happened on the play. But apparently he's going to be out now 4 to 6 weeks. We know Landry Jones will take over this week. Looked like a huge game. Still is, but a little luster taken off. Landry against the Patriots. Tom Brady going into Pittsburgh. Russ, I'll come back to you. Is Landry Jones any good? Obviously, with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, you've got some players who can help you out there, but I've never quite warmed up to him. And does he have any shot of beating the Patriots this week?
I mean, I'd be shocked if he could beat the Patriots. I think their best hope is that their team comes out and just plays so far better than you expect. But the one thing you have to like about Landry is he's got good size, got a good arm, and he's tough as nails. Now, he's not a good athlete, I don't think he's a particularly accurate guy, and he will force passes. I wouldn't be shocked if 2 weeks from now, if Mettenberger gets the call, because I think Landry's going to throw a number of picks, and I think when you watch the two in practice, Landry Jones is sort of your prototypical good enough to be in the league. Mettenberger's the guy that physically is a freak. Now, he has not shown the ability to do anything with that yet, but it wouldn't shock me if they roll the dice if Landry plays poorly the next 2 or 3 games. Give Mettenberger a game or two to show himself before Big Ben comes back.
Chris, Steelers lost Ben for 5 games last year, kind of held serve with Michael Vick and Jones, and then he came back. How big is this? I mean, does this knock them out of maybe home field in the AFC? Does that keep them from the division? Chris, what do you think about how this injury this year is going to affect them if he misses 3 or 5 games?
Well, it could be tough. I think the first thing we have to note, though, is that this game is in Pittsburgh, so they play well at home. They don't lose any games there, so I think they'll have that going for them. They can establish that run game, as Russ alluded to. I think you take a little bit of pressure off of Landry Jones, and you got a defense that has some playmakers on it. They play fast, they're good from front to back. So I think if they can get the stops, I think they're gonna have a chance. It's still Tom Brady, and right now he looks unstoppable. With the rapport that he has with his receivers right now, especially Chris Hogan and his tight ends. I think they're going to be difficult, but rest assured, Mike Tomlin will have these guys coached up. They're going to come in and fight. Now, if that's a matter of them bringing a knife to gunfight, we'll see without Big Ben, but they're going to ball their fist up and fight.
Yeah, and that run defense, guys, I mean, that was just absolutely putrid last week. No Cam Hayward last week. Doesn't appear that he'll play again. Ryan Shazier also out, and Jay Ajayi comes out of nowhere and has an unbelievable game. So they've got Patriots at home this weekend, bye week, week 8, at Baltimore. Dallas comes to Pittsburgh, at Cleveland, at Indianapolis. So 3 road games the next 5, but not the most daunting schedule of all time. Any predictions on what the record might be if Ben misses, let's say, 4 games?
Well, I guess I'll take that. I'm glad you brought that up, because if you look at it, I guess there's kind of a silver lining is I think they do have some games that are winnable for them there, but it is going to depend how they do at the trigger man spot. So we'll see right now when Landry Jones comes out and what he has to offer.
Russ, quick thought on that?
I think I'm betting 1 and 3, and the reason being is I just think Landry will turn the ball over too much. I think their team is good, but you can't turn it over and win games even against bad teams.
Yeah, Michael Vick just turned his cell phone on. I don't think it'll matter, but it's worth noting. All right, let's turn to another athletic quarterback. Not quite the same player by any means, but Dak Prescott has impressed all of us, I think, to this point, coming off a 2-turnover performance, but a very strong, composed performance. Big win for the Cowboys at Lambeau Field. And now comes the news. The Cowboys are on bye this week, but Dak Prescott will start the first game after the bye. That's a Sunday nighter against the Eagles, who, suddenly struggling a little bit. So the soonest Tony Romo could be available to return to the lineup would be that game at Cleveland. And the Browns get Tom Brady in his return. They might get Tony Romo in his return. But at this point, Chris, I'll come to you first. I mean, do you even make a switch? It's looking more and more like Prescott knows what he's doing here and can handle this.
No, you don't make a switch. And I said this last week, and I stand by it. I said if he goes into Lambeau Field, he plays well, and he helps lead those guys to a victory, that you just can't pull him out. I mean, the guy's playing good football. You mentioned the turnovers. What I look for is how he bounced back after the turnovers. He still had the look in his eye that they're going to go out there and win, and he was going to lead the charge. Now, they're running the football. There's great chemistry there with Ezekiel Elliott. Remember, the Packers had the best run defense in the NFL, and they just chunked them. They annihilated them up front. It's because of that offensive line. Dak Prescott right now, the players in that locker room believe in him wholeheartedly. And I think Jerry Jones, despite the posturing and the media play and all that, I think he understands that he cannot disrupt the chemistry that's going on right now until this kid falters, and if he does, maybe you put in Romo. But for my seat, I'd certainly submit that you got to go with the hot hand, and that's Dak Prescott.
You there too, Russ? That your line of thinking?
Oh, I think there's no question. I think the reality is, when you look at Philadelphia even, you saw Carson Wentz was on fire, was playing great. and teams have started to get the book on him. They've started to take things away, and he's not playing as well. You ride Dak as long as you can, because the thing you have with him is great poise, tremendous character, and a big, strong, athletic kid who's not going to force plays. So as long as he keeps doing that and playing within himself, boom, you got the guy. But it's nice to know that whether it's 2 weeks from now or 4 weeks, if he starts to hit that rookie wall where coordinators have 5 or 6 games of film and all of a sudden they're taking away the favorite things he likes to do and he starts to struggle, boom, you put Romo in, and although he's probably going to have a rusty game or two, he's probably going to upgrade the overall passing game. I'm not saying the whole offense, but as a passer. So I think they're in a phenomenal position. But no, why would you make that switch when the team is running and protecting the ball and scoring so well?
Interesting little stretch of the schedule for the Cowboys, too, after the bye. This week, I should say, they get a rookie quarterback in Carson Wentz, as you just mentioned. Then at Cleveland, Cody Kessler, a rookie quarterback. And then at Pittsburgh, likely Landry Jones, assuming that the timetable on Roethlisberger is correct. So the next 3 weeks, they're facing essentially replacement guys, even if Wentz is playing well, even if Cody Kessler's gotten a big show of approval from Hugh Jackson. So very interesting little stretch that wouldn't be stunning if the Cowboys are 8-1. We'll have to see if that's with Romo, with Prescott, whether they make a switch and all of that. Very interesting stuff. Now, guys, one of the big topics that came out of last Sunday's games was Vontaze Burfict, who had served a 3-game suspension after the playoff hit against Antonio Brown. Dirty play, everyone said it except for Vontaze, who didn't think there was anything wrong with it. And then on Sunday against New England, coach's tape showed he stomped on the leg, I guess you could say, of LeGarrette Blount. Also went low on a hit with Martellus Bennett, got into it with Gronk. The league fined him $75,000. Now, Chris, you played the game at the highest level. Based on what you saw and what you know of the reputation of Vontaze Burfict as a player, should the fine have been more? Did they get it right? Was it too much? What do you think?
Well, first off, this is a guy that's been fined $200,000, in excess of $200,000 the last few years, so he's no stranger to sitting down and getting fined. The thing with him is his reputation precedes him, so he loses any benefit of the doubt that he's going to have. Now, I think the league probably took the stance of, hey, was there a player that was injured because of his actions? And if not, we won't suspend him. We'll just slap him with a hefty fine. So I think they got it right. I can live with this. But this is a guy that you just got to keep an eye on. You can tell within the fabric of who he is. He just likes being a dirty player. He doesn't mind paying these fines. He thinks that that's who he is. That's how he wants to present himself to the world. And so with guys like that, you end up having a growing bullseye on his chest. So ultimately, I'm hearing people talk about should the coach step in and should he say something, should players step in. Players in that locker room know who this guy is. And at some point, somebody's going to sit down with him and say, look, dude, you just got to get this thing right. And you hope that comes from the top down.
Well, Russ, I'll play off what Chris just said, which was he's been fined $200,000+ in the league. He's getting this fine now. He's already served a 3-game suspension. Marvin Lewis and the Cincinnati Bengals know full well what they're dealing with, and opponents know what they're dealing with. Clearly, nothing to this point has dissuaded him from acting any differently. I mean, I don't know what you do at this point to change his behavior short of taking him off the field again. His wallet, he clearly doesn't bother by that. What's your take on the controversial Bengals linebacker?
Well, I think one of the things you have to look at is, remember, in Arizona State it was worse. So I think you have to give some credit to Marvin Lewis and the Bengals. They've worked with the kid. I'll bet you they work with this kid constantly. I'll bet you their player development or whatever title person he is constantly in touch with him. He's a lot better than he was at Arizona State, where he got thrown off the team basically for inability to control his emotions. I think their hope in Cincinnati is to just keep him from doing anything dramatic. Let him take the fines until hopefully 2 or 3 years from now when he hits 27 and he starts to wise up and he starts to mature. Then they might have a Pro Bowl player who knows how to control his emotions. So I think as an organization, they have a long history of dealing with guys with off-field or personality or quirky stuff that doesn't sort of mesh the right way. I think they're just trying to manage this until the light goes on in the kid's head because he's such a good football player.
Yeah, I can still remember the college game I watched. I think it might have been against Missouri, where he jumped off sides twice. He was called for an unsportsmanlike conduct. He He had 2 tackles for loss. He had a sack. I think he had a blocked extra point, too. I mean, it was like the full Vontaze experience in one game. Like, all the crazy, all the good talent, and that's what you deal with every game, every week, every season. I almost feel like we're never going to get rid of the unpredictable nature of his game. I mean, is that fair to say about him?
I would say generally, but I do think as he gets older, he will mature. You hope. And I think as he gets maybe 2 or 3 years from now, you might see a guy that maybe he occasionally gets a late hit, but doesn't commit the penalties or do the antics that are going to get him suspended. But the reality is, I mean, I'll bet you that Bengals organization is doing everything possible to help him. I just think at this point, he's sort of a young, immature kid who is unwilling and unable to control his emotions on the field.
And I think that's who he wants to be, guys.
Yes.
Have a willingness to change. I think he doesn't mind presenting himself as that villain type guy.
No doubt.
Wow, that's I guess what we're dealing with here and what we're talking with. A very good player, but somebody who occasionally struggles to control himself. All right, let's go to the college football, and I think the big game of the weekend that everyone's going to be looking forward to, the 2:30 kickoff between number 6 Texas A&M and number 1 Alabama at Bryant-Denny Stadium. CBS has got it, and it's amazing that 2 top 6 teams face off, and Bama has been installed as a 17-point favorite. That's kind of how this season has gone. Everybody said, wow, Tennessee's not getting much respect. At 12 points, they go out and absolutely whip them, so that kind of backed that up a little bit. You've got this young quarterback, Jalen Hurts, who's playing well for Bama. You've got this defense for Bama that is just scoring more than some teams' offenses in the NCAA field. So, Chris, when you look at this Bama team off the cuff, I think you're starting to think, boy, they might be among some of the better clubs that Nick Saban has had there, and that's saying something. They've won national titles before.
Well, they put so much stress on you because they have such elite athletes at different positions. When you look at the quarterback that you mentioned, Jalen Hurts, I'll give some credit to Lane Kiffin because they're running a certain amount of zone read stuff where he can get out on that perimeter, and then it's curtains. I mean, he's running for the end zone, so he's a guy that you want to keep confined to the pocket. He's playing way bigger than his freshman-type label that he has, and right now they're staying ahead of the chains. They're good on third down. This kid believes that with the weapons he has, like Calvin Ridley or Darius Stewart, those guys, they're going to make big plays. So it's going to be a tough offense to slow down, especially with the way Lane Kiffin's calling it.
On the other side of the ball, go ahead, Russ.
Well, I was just going to say, I agree with that. And then, like you mentioned, the other side of the ball, to me, the concern here, if I'm A&M, is our whole defense is almost predicated by Myles Garrett being able to disrupt things, our defense being able to adjust and move him around and sort of blitz and pressure off of him being double-teamed. Well, Alabama may not even have to double-team him a lot of time. When he's against Cam Robinson, Cam did a great job against him the first time they played. Last week, you saw Robinson go up against Barnett, and obviously Barnett did not have a huge impact on the game. To me, that's going to be the key to the game. If Myles Garrett can't get pressure consistently, or at least make them double-team and chip every single down, I think that's doomsday for their defense, and I think Alabama will score at will, and therefore I think there's almost no chance of A&M being able to keep up scoring. They need to keep this a low-scoring game if A&M's going to stay in this. I think that's their only chance to stay in this game.
Myles Garrett has been slowed by an ankle injury. A&M did have the bye week, the open date as they call it in college football. Last week, wouldn't say this week, he was kind of playing coy when they asked him kind of about the health of his ankle. He said, well, I'm not going to tell Bama how healthy I am or I'm not, but I am healthy enough to play well in this game. And you know, NFL scouts will be there. They will be there en masse. That press box is going to be filled with them, not just media members up there. So the NFL will be watching this game closely. And you know, I mean, I think Myles Garrett has a chance to be the number 1 player in the draft.
Yep, no question.
Quarterbacks being, can he be a one-man wrecking crew? I mean, you know, Deshaun Hall's a good end. He's on the other side. He can get after it a little bit, but I think Garrett can have a big game. The other question is Trevor Knight. Obviously, he befuddled Bama a few years ago at Oklahoma. Now against this Bama defense that has been so good, Chris, does he have any room to go against, you know, Reuben Foster and, you know, Tim Williams and these great rushers they have and the secondary with Humphrey? And I mean, it just doesn't stop. Bama just produces this unbelievable defensive talent.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought him up. Trevor Knight has played well for sure.
Yep.
And credit Noah Mazzoni for putting him in good spots, great calls offensively. They too will run some zone read. And I think people look at Trevor Knight, they don't think he can run. That guy can scoot. He's an athlete, but he also can make those big throws. He's got some good receivers outside like Josh Reynolds. They're not afraid to take advantage of one-on-one matchups. So I think they're going to score. I do. I think they're going to put some points up on Bama. It's whether they can win a shootout. And then I don't know if they're built that way. But Trevor Knight and this Texas A&M team, you heard it here, they're going to score some points and have some success on offense. They're playing that well this year.
Interesting stuff. Big news, big non-news, I guess you would say, in the Big 12. What a weird conference that is. I'm glad Missouri, my alma mater, has moved on to better landscape. But the news is that they will stay at 10 teams for now. There is no expansion. It's like a clown show. I mean, these guys say there is expansion, there won't be, there might be. They have to come to an agreement here. Any big takeaways at all, Russ? I don't know if you had any thoughts on just the Big 12. I mean, clearly this conference is predicated on what Oklahoma and Texas do. They're the heartbeat, and if either one of them decide to look elsewhere, this is like half the Mountain West we're talking about.
Well, two things to me stand out. First, it makes you wonder what the leaders of the Big 12 are thinking. Because if they're going to compete long term, having two divisions, having a championship game, that's what they're going to have to do to compete with these other conferences. Secondly, to me, it makes me wonder, do Oklahoma and Texas, Houston was one of the teams a lot of people are pointing to as a potential team. Did they both step in and say, nope, we don't want Houston. We're afraid that Tom Herman going down there, he's sort of building a power, and that if we bring them into the Big 12, he won't leave Houston like everybody expects. He'll stay there, be a thorn in our side, and maybe really make our jobs much tougher. That, to me, is what I took away, is they're a little bit scared of Houston.
Well, Chris, that's a great point to jump off of. I mean, the optics of losing recruits to Houston is bad enough, but then if you lose football games to them, whether you're OU or Texas, that's not a good look for the boosters right there.
No, and frankly, I never really thought of that point, but I think it's a very valid one that Russ brought up. Right now, Tom Herman, I mean, the kids love him. He can recruit. He has that relatability that he can connect with players, but he's also good from a chalk talk perspective. So I think right now that guy's as hot as any coach in the country, and he is going to be tough. And so I think they do know that. That's a very valid point that you brought up there, Russ.
And think about this. What if Houston keeps playing well? Tom gets a huge offer this offseason, goes to another program. All of a sudden, the Big 12 is now back interested in going down this lane because Herman's left and Houston won't be a powerhouse.
Oh, my goodness. So Tom Herman, the guy that few people outside the inner sanctum of college football had heard about, even 18 months ago. I guess he was the assistant coach of the year at Ohio State a couple years back, but it's amazing how that ripple effect could happen. I'll float one theory. I think the best way to keep Oklahoma and Texas in the Big 12 is if the playoff field expands beyond 4 teams. My thinking is this. If you can get one of those spots and have an easier run of it than, say, the Pac-12, which has been strengthened, the SEC, which we know year in and year out is at least top-heavy with Alabama and such, but, I mean, they don't need money. Oklahoma and Texas have lots of money. They're in great shape. A lucrative offer could tempt them, but if you can get it to 6 or 8 teams, I mean, all you have to do is run your way through this pretty weak field, to be honest.
Yep.
Maybe Oklahoma State every couple of years, whatever. Texas Tech might have a crazy season out of left field, but that might be their best chance of keeping both OU and Texas happy is by expanding the playoff field. Again, that's something maybe a little bit out of their hands, but that could be it. That could be the only thing that kind of keeps them from Bolton.
Yep, no question.
I think the problem as it stands currently, fellas, is that whether the committee will ever say it or not, without a championship game, I think there'll be a...
Well, that's true.
Yep.
And that's the issue. And I don't know how you can circumvent that issue without having a championship game. So I do think it strongly handicaps the Big 12.
You look at geography, you look at the teams who might be willing to move conferences. There may not be that natural fit outside of Houston. All right. So I would ask both of you guys, one game you're kind of keeping an eye on this weekend in college football, and maybe a matchup, a player, could be a draft prospect, could be a younger guy. Give me one game, one sort of area of concentration in that game that you're looking at. Russ, I'll come to you first.
Well, before the season, I was really excited to see Illinois play Michigan solely because I thought Wes Lunt, he's an intriguing kid, highly recruited guy that's gone to Illinois, and he's slowly gotten better. But he missed last week against Purdue. He's most likely out this week, so I can't watch him. But Michigan's got this tight end that a lot of people have not really heard of outside of really draft followers, and that's Jake Butt. He's probably going to be a first or a second round pick as a tight end. Not a very good blocker, but as a receiver, this kid's a really good football player, catches the ball well, a very aggressive runner after the catch. I want to see Hardy Nickerson, Taylor Barton, the strong safety Barton, Nickerson the Mike. How are they going to work to cover him? What are they going to be able to do to slow him down? I think it's a great also test for Nickerson to prove to NFL scouts he can cover, that he's not just a between-the-box sort of attack forward type guy, but that he can drop, that he can pick up guys like Butt and cover them man-to-man. He could really help his draft stock if he does a good job on Butt this weekend.
Chris, what do you got?
I'm going to go Ohio State, Penn State. And I know everybody will be talking about the Alabama A&M game, but I think this is a good matchup. Ohio State always has itself in a battle, especially when they go and play at Penn State. It's in the evening time. You've got the whiteout and all that.
Yep.
So I'm fascinated to see this kid Curtis Samuels because he's the one that every scout that I talk to that goes through Ohio State, you hear some talks out there and whispers that he reminds you of Percy Harvin with his versatility, his explosiveness, and sort of the compact style. So I think this guy has been great for Ohio State. I think this will be a big matchup at Penn State. But I'm not sure that anybody can slow down Ohio State right now. I think they got out of Camp Randall. They're kind of one of those teams that they either find a way or make a way. So I expect that to happen this weekend.
I'm going to go with Miami, Virginia Tech. And I know it's one of those games that may not be all that sexy off the hook. It's a Thursday night game, though. So if the NFL game doesn't interest you, maybe you switch over and check out as we look towards Blacksburg. And to me, guys, Brad Kaya has left me wanting a little bit more. You see some flashes against Florida State, a couple of nice fade passes. You say, hey, I can picture this guy playing in the NFL. But then you see that offense kind of bogged down at times and him not getting the ball to Stacy Coley. And this kid, Amon Richards, has been outstanding when he's been able to touch the ball, 23 yards a catch or whatever he is. Problem is he only has about 17 grabs. So getting the ball into his hands, which ultimately is Kaya's responsibility, has been difficult. And this is, it's a Virginia Tech defense that I know got gashed last week up at the Carrier Dome. Still top 10 nationally. Still have some really good talents. Greg Stroman's a really good cornerback. This defensive end, Ekanem, I think can get after the pass. I think he's got 4 or 5 sacks this season. They've got good linebacker play as well, good safety play. I would be shocked if the Hokies give Brad Kaya in that passing game a little more trouble. I've just been a little underwhelmed by the quarterback options, especially the senior ones in college football this season. So that's one I'm keeping an eye on. Anyone have any thoughts about what you've seen out of Kaya this season?
Inconsistent.
I think he showed me toughness. The man got his tooth.
Absolutely, 100%.
So let's start with that. You can check that box. We can work with anything from a quarterback perspective. And he kind of chuckled to myself, but it's kind of true. The ratings are so bad with NFL football on Thursday nights, especially with the products that they've been putting out there. So I'm sure a lot of people are going to digress from the game and tune in to check out this matchup.
And I'll just tell you, Kaya physically, it's there. Mentally, it seems to be there, but they don't seem to always connect. He seems to be slow getting rid of the ball at times, doesn't always go to the guy you want him to go to when you see a replay of the play. So I just think he's still developing. I think there's a lot of talk about him coming out. I have a feeling from everybody I've spoken to that he very much wants to stay in school another year. He'll only come out if he's going to be a very high pick. So I think the odds are he's going to get another year to try to impress us and prove he's a legit NFL prospect.
Mark Rick has said quarterbacks to the NFL before. That'll work in his favor. Maybe the lack of talent elsewhere on that offense will also help him out. He's got a little bit of a Teddy Bridgewater-esque quality too. I mean, he doesn't wow you, but he's consistently impressive, and that toughness, Chris, as you mentioned, cannot be denied. All right, that is going to wrap up this week, Week 7 in the NFL, Week 8 college football of the Rec League. I believe it's our 5th show now. Russ Landy, Chris Martin, Eric Edholm. Leave us some questions in the comments box, too. If there's anything you want us to talk about, touch on for next week's show. We usually tape the show on Wednesday or Thursday, so let us know. We'll try to get to those. We'll cross your topics off one at a time. Thanks, guys. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for listening.
Russ, mind the gap over in London, my friend.
I am always doing that, no doubt.